Hey all, Larry Platt here from the Philadelphia Citizen. Welcome to this episode of How to Really Run a City, our deep dive into the mystery and mastery of big city leadership. How to Really Run a City features two accomplished practitioners of the art of urban changemaking, former two-term Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed and former two-term Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter. If you've listened to past episodes, you know the drill. If you're frustrated by all the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., this podcast is a testament to the notion that there are really three political parties in America: Democrats, Republicans, and mayors, who have no choice but to be practical problem solvers. In today's episode, we're announcing a new partnership. How to Really Run a City is now powered by Accelerator for America, really the nation's preeminent do tank for cities. If you're an elected official, a policy wonk, or just someone who cares about cities as the epicenter of innovation and ingenuity, Accelerator has long been the go-to place for ideas and results on moving America forward. So we're psyched about this, and today the mayors will be talking with Accelerator President and CEO Mary Ellen Wiederwohl and its co-chair, Kansas City, Missouri Mayor Quinton Lucas, also known as Mayor Q. We'll talk to them about Accelerator for America's work on setting up the nation's first comprehensive housing task force. We'll talk to Mayor Q about his zero fare transit initiative. And we'll get into some back and forth about football, given Mayor Q's Chiefs and Mayor Nutter's Eagles. Enjoy the show.
What's going on? There it is. Out of the tunnel, baby. And the crowd erupts.
Are we entertained?
Yeah. So have you seen Gladiator too?
I have not. I have not.
Gotta go see it.
Is it all that?
You definitely have to go see it. I'm calling Larry Lawrence now, by the way. I've learned that he has an English surname. One with Lawrence from now on.
Lawrence would be my Republican name.
When he goes to the dark side, that's they call him Lawrence over there. Yeah.
He used Larry when he's a journalist to relate.
Yeah.
So
right.
Put your guard down. You know, if you were being interviewed by somebody named Lawrence, you would walk into the room prepared. But if you meet Larry, I think you're gonna have a couple of beers, and by that your lunch.
So what's up, Larry? How you doing, man? What's the word?
Exactly.
Talk to me,
I can. Right, I get that a lot. I can bullshit this guy is the subtext.
Larry. Oh man, who was doing the 5 minutes out?
Mayor Lucas, Kansas City Mayor Lucas is a few minutes behind.
Okay, Mayor Q.
I was waiting for you to come out of the tunnel.
Yeah, I have emerged.
I don't know why. After all of these podcasts we've shared with practitioners, why they haven't taken the gift of delay. Mayor is never late. He is delayed. Not a bit out. Not 5 minutes. Just so clean. Delayed. He doesn't say when it's happening.
You can't even go anywhere with that. You can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
Delayed. What does that mean? Till when?
Politics knows no hour, baby.
Delayed. How you been, man? What you been up to? You been traveling or you
Oh man, too much.
Yeah.
Okay. Stay home. Yeah, I was in Mexico. It's been a journey, brother.
What?
I gotta talk to you when I see you. Yeah.
I was just in Savannah the other day with.
Wow! Did you have good food? They got good food in Savannah.
We had some good meals, man. We had some good meals.
Did you see Mayor Johnson down there?
Yeah. It was What Work Cities thing with Bloomberg Philanthropies, and they're working on becoming one of the certified cities. So it was a site visit. I'm on the standards committee.
Oh, good.
And we had a couple of good days. And then he's bad. He's a bad boy. So excuse me. I guess it was Tuesday night. We were leaving Wednesday. Tuesday night, we had this great dinner at this wonderful place called the Pink House.
Of course, I'm ready to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I said to the team, my colleagues, I said, we got to check out this Leopold ice cream, right? So we find one of the spots near the hotel. Line is way out the door. I said to him, I'm not gonna make y'all wait in line with me on this. And then we just went on back. So
if
Wednesday,
your brother, you would not have had to wait in that line.
Wednesday.
Came in and they call you brother. What kind of?
Oh yeah. So Wednesday, we finish up the site visit. We're down by the water. We're with the mayor. And he's telling us what he's telling us. And then we go to one more place to get a presentation. I'm getting ready to roll. One of the staff members is going to take me to the airport. Suddenly she says, no, Mayor, we're going to have one of our officers take you. Oh, okay. That's nice. But get outside. The mayor rolls up with his guy.
Yeah.
With a cup of Leopold's ice cream.
There you go. I knew the story was happy.
And puts me in the car with his guy and then takes me to the airport.
Yeah.
Oh man. I said, this is like the old days.
Yeah. Do you remember when we would go to New York and Mayor Bloomberg would have cronuts for us?
Yeah.
That were impossible to get at the time. And he would have them in our rooms.
Yeah. It'd be, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 of us. Mayor would put us together for a couple of days up at Bloomberg Philanthropies. And I mean, you just never knew like who was going to, like an opening speaker was like Katie Couric in the morning. And then we have dinner and then like Henry Kissinger would be there and then Walter Isaacson. I mean, like all these people and, and they were just like relatively normal and wanted to talk to us. And I mean, it was just crazy. He put anybody in the room.
Great training. There was a lesson in that, Larry, for the folks who listen. What he taught us was that when you're mayor, you use every aspect of the city. Anything about your city that is unique, or if somebody would come in there, they would definitely want to do it. Make it easy for them.
Yeah.
The whole city. So he had a corner of his office where he had a stage, and people from Broadway would come in and step on the little riser and sing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was,
like whatever show, whatever popular show is in town. They break out. They would create songs. One time we were there, they worked in like 15 different city names into a tune, and it's just incredible stuff.
Well, when you go back to Savannah, you got to stay at my place. It's this place called the President's Quarters.
Okay.
That's where you got to, the next time you're on one of these site visits.
Yeah, the President's Quarters. Okay.
Wonderful inn in Savannah.
Yeah.
My favorite place there.
Did you go over to Forsyth Park?
I did.
That huge park they have over there. Yeah.
I'm there all the time. I got President Obama gave us the money for the deepening of the Savannah port.
Right. And
so every time I used to land in Savannah, they'd be like, "You got the money?" Walk around with $1 billion on me, but help you too.
I get back to you. Did we talk to Larry about our trip together to Panama? Did we ever talk about that?
Was that with President Biden?
Yeah.
When he was vice president.
Yeah. Right. We did. And I remember Mayor Reed saying he took him up to the cockpit, which was
yeah.
And then I stayed at the house when we got back. He took me to the vice president's.
To the naval place.
The Naval Observatory, I think.
Naval Observatory, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds.
Yeah. That was a wild trip. That was a wild trip. Mary Ellen's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. What is that conversation?
This has been so much fun just listening in the background. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm not undoing myself from all of this and then putting it back on. It's like I've got it all tucked in there.
You're right where you're supposed to be.
There you go.
It was fun to hear you all talk about the trip to Savannah. I've eaten at the Pink House. The whole place is just a sort of a caricature of itself.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Really
So-
nice people.
So I ordered I'm like, okay, so I'm down here. Let me order this. Let me order this fried chicken, right?
Have you been to a place called Mrs. Wilkes Boarding House? Does that place still exist?
It still does. Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't been there.
Great family style. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's amazing.
Oh, they
Lawrence,
brought
have
it.
you been to
They brought out Lawrence.
Has Lawrence been to Savannah? Have you been?
Y'all are making me hungry.
I don't know if Lawrence can go to.
I've never been to Savannah and wouldn't go and be called Lawrence. I can't believe now I gotta.
They brought out a bowl of chicken, man. It's like I just know there's no human being that can eat all of this, and I can't take it with me.
I was taking that chicken, brother.
I don't think that real. I don't think that's getting through TSA. I really don't.
Anna's here with me, and she will tell you I would have taken that chicken.
You would have figured out how.
I can see the agent like, sir, what is this?
Yeah.
Hey, look, man, it's from the Pink House. Oh boy, the stuff that goes on.
Well,
Anyway.
it's great to be with you all. And Mayor
Great to
Nutter,
see
I
you.
know that you're talking to our mutual friend Ann Nevins a lot these days, so we thank you
Yes,
for
I
that.
am. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm talking to her later today.
Well, and in
Yeah.
our great pantheon of former mayors, I had breakfast this morning with Mayor Fisher.
Did you?
I
Oh, man.
did.
Oh, man.
Yep. We keep
So
in touch.
Are you in are you in Louisville?
I am still in Louisville. Yes,
okay.
I, of course, was on Mayor Fisher's staff for 8.5 years and still live
Yeah.
here. And so he and I try to keep up in our afterlife of City Hall.
What'd you do
experience.
for him? What'd you do
I
for him?
led economic and community development for him for most of that time. I was also his deputy
sense.
chief of staff for a period of that time.
There you go. There you go. Tough jobs.
stuff.
Tough jobs. Tough
Well,
jobs. Chief of staff.
They are, but they are critically important jobs. And we
Mhm.
talked a lot this morning about culture and the way that the mayor's office and the mayor set a culture for the organization,
Culture.
how important
Yeah.
that is. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well-
Spent a lot of time with Mayor Fisher.
Let's I'll do a quick intro and then we'll just get since we're already getting into it. And then hopefully Mayor Q will join us in progress. Let me just say that we are psyched to announce that How to Really Run a City is now being powered by Accelerator for America. Really,
Yes.
yeah,
All right.
Call the machine, JB.
The drum roll or something.
the standing O.
There you go.
Accelerator for America has really become the nation's preeminent do tank for cities and for advancing progress throughout the nation. So we're psyched about this. In future episodes, we'll have innovative policy segments from Accelerator for the mayors to react to and comment on. And on this episode, we want to welcome two guests: Accelerator for America President and CEO Mary Ellen Wiederwohl. And as we'll talk about, Mary Ellen led economic and community development for the city of Louisville from 2014 through 2020, overseeing more than $17 billion in new capital investments for that city. So, Mary Ellen, welcome. We couldn't be more excited about this partnership. Can you tell us what is Accelerator for America? What is the history of it? I remember sort of probably about 10 years ago, it was like the brainchild of then LA Mayor Eric Garcetti. But can you give us a sense of the mission and what you're up to?
Absolutely. Well, it's a real honor and joy to be with you all today. We're excited to kick off this partnership with this inaugural podcast with this esteemed panel of former mayors and about to be one of our current mayors, with Mayor Lucas joining us for this conversation as well. Larry, you gave a great intro there with our Do Tank moniker. That is one that we live up to. There's a lot of people in the think tank business. We respect them. We work with them. We think deeply at Accelerator as well. But our real goal is to act quickly and in service to our mayors, our cities, and their residents. You're right. Our founding goes back to the great mayor of LA, Eric Garcetti. And after the 2016 election, candidly, he and a bunch of other mayors, a couple of folks who I'm staring at on the screen today, said, well, we're not likely to get a cavalry riding to help from DC, so we might as well look to each other and our partners in business, labor, and philanthropy to help. And so we were founded 1 year after the 2016 election with that platform to create a place where mayors and their partners in the private sector and nonprofit sector can come together to create, develop, and lift up those great ideas that are happening in cities, and then across our network, share, scale, and replicate them to really help our city leaders be better every day.
That's awesome. And guys, jump in.
He's got that. You got the elevator thing down. That's right.
I've got a 30-second version, a 2-minute version. Oh, it's joyful work. It's fun to talk about. My own story, seeing both of you and my tenure in Louisville, was working for Mayor Fisher. I got to be the beneficiary of Accelerator services in its early days. So 2017-18, Accelerator is getting on its feet. And Mayor Garcetti goes to Mayor Fisher. They were both involved in leadership of U.S. Conference of Mayors and leaders of mayors, as you all are. And Mayor Garcetti says, hey, I've started this thing called Accelerator for America. I'd really like for you to be involved. Mayor Fisher says, yes, sounds like a great platform. We could use it. Mayor Fisher comes to me and says, hey, I want you to go with me to this first meeting. And I said, okay, great. What is it? And he says, it has something to do with economic development. I said, okay, I'm in. And hence began a journey, which now brings me here to this moment with you all. So in the early days of Accelerator, we in Louisville were early adopters. We were beneficiaries of it by being the first city in the country that had an opportunity zone prospectus. And so many of you know that was one of the outcomes of the original version of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that we're getting ready to debate again in 2025 in Washington. And cities were debating, how do I use this thing? City leaders had never used equity in a community development capital stack, and it brought the private and public sectors together in a new way. And so Accelerator steered into that, working with Bruce Katz, who is our research and development partner to this day. Bruce and I and our team skunk worked that original Opportunity Zone prospectus. You could say that we were the guinea pigs in Louisville. And then we created a platform that then Accelerator was able to replicate in 59 other places. So a real great example of how Accelerator works with cities. And then for me, this is a wonderful moment to now be able to be on the other side of the table, providing these kinds of services, programs, initiatives for our city leaders who never have enough time, resources, or money. They're not making any more time. So here at Accelerator, we try to bring our city leaders resources that can help them advance the important causes they're working on.
Mary Ellen, tell us, what is the biggest need that you hear the most from new mayors when they engage you?
Well, we see mayors when they first come into office, and then we usually see them again around their second year in the office. Because you all know, in that first year in office, you're really figuring out which end is up. You came in with a platform, you thought you knew what you were going to do, and then, well, the city happens. So we have all been in a really dynamic time in the last few years. But I'll tell you, if you talk to any of our mayors, no matter where they are in their tenure right now, you'll hear some combination of the following top 3 policy areas: homelessness, housing, gun violence, public safety. And of course, with the election and preparing for what may change in 2025, right now you're also starting to hear more about immigration and what will that mean for city leaders as they govern, as they work with their police forces, and they understand how that may impact their communities. But those are the top issues that we hear a lot about. And so at Accelerator, we have this North Star focusing on creating greater economic mobility. That's what we're aiming for. That's our mountaintop. And so the programs and initiatives that we work on are all about what can we do, whether it's very tactical or very strategic, to help our mayors advance that cause in their communities.
How many cities are you working with now?
So we're very proud to be working with almost 100 cities this year. And that is a huge uptick over the last few years. We're able to touch that number of cities as we work in cohorts and communities of practice. That's one of the things that we're known for. When we get in there in that do tank work and get the dirt under our fingernails, we love to put people together in that format. We can provide them information, resources, access to experts, but we also create a peer learning and sharing platform that allows folks to learn from each other. I don't know about you all, but when I was in the role in the city, that was one of the things I enjoyed most, was that camaraderie of peers. I just learned so much from people who have either done it and told you what worked and what didn't. As we all know, we usually learn more from what didn't go well. And then also the people who are in it together with you at the time, and you can really share and walk together towards solutions.
No.
Hey guys, just to note here, Mary Ellen mentioned Bruce Katz, who we've had on the show.
Yeah.
We're big fans of his, and the other will be joined by Mayor Q. But the other co-chair is Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, who was also with us and blew us away with her brilliance.
Was she our first?
She was one of our first. I think Libby Schaff was our first.
Yeah.
So just, small world in terms of top innovators in this space. But hey, Mary Ellen, speaking of Bruce Katz, I'm really excited about the Accelerator's National Housing Crisis Task Force, which he's been standing up and making the case for. Can you tell us about that? And I like the idea that at the center of it is that this is a national crisis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and one of the things that you'll hear us say is we got to treat this like the crisis that it is. And this has been a crisis that has been growing for some time, but unfortunately, it's been too quiet. It's been too far under wraps. And now we're at a place where it's really boiled over. And access to housing and housing affordability has become an issue at pretty much every income strata. It's a classic supply-demand story, all you economics majors out there. We haven't built enough, and so it now all costs too much. Housing has been the victim of course, inflation. It has been the victim of what happened with supply chain. And then there are other things from a policy and legal perspective that we've done as a country that make it hard and expensive to build housing. So a couple years ago, Bruce and I started banging around on this, saying, well, we got to do something about this too. The earlier point of when you ask a mayor, top issues, housing is on that short list for everybody. So we approached several national partners, philanthropic sources, and ultimately we decided to co-convene the National Housing Crisis Task Force here in 2024. We started meeting mid-year. It's an amazing group of folks, really cross-sectoral in the housing space. You have folks who are on the finance side, you have folks on the building side, state, local, federal. Most importantly, it's bipartisan. And we've got a wonderful combination of elected leaders and private sector leaders. So it's co-chaired by the Republican governor of Utah, Governor Cox, two of our great mayors, Mayor Dickens from Atlanta, Mayor Bibb from Cleveland, and a private sector leader, Susan Thomas from Fifth Third's Community Development Corporation, plus 24 other fabulous leaders. And then we have a mayor's implementation committee, which are the 15 mayors on our advisory council at AFA, as well as the researching technical committee. So we have been putting all those people in rooms, virtual and real rooms, and working together over this past year. We put together a federal policy agenda, has 40 unique and actionable federal policy items, everything that can be done with a stroke of a pen by the new president or all the way to congressional action. And then in 2025, and this goes right to the heart of how we work, we will be releasing over the first 6 months a state and local housing action plan that will give state housing leaders, local housing leaders, and their elected officials a to-do list and how to get it done.
That's great. That's great.
Wow.
And isn't one of the issues getting all of those actors locally and regionally on the same page?
Yeah, it really is. And if you dig into the stuff that we've written, and you can check all this out online at the nationalhousingcrisis.org website, We need a real ecosystem approach to this. We need to think about housing in the way that we've thought about industrial strategy as a country, and we haven't. We've compartmentalized the pieces of housing, and now it's all laid bare and out on the edges that we can see. There is no coordination the way that there needs to be when we think about land availability, finance options, workforce development, as well as new construction techniques. And there's a lot of exciting innovations occurring. We just have to think about it more holistically and get more resources into this challenge.
What would you say are the top? You talked about housing as one of the major challenges. As I've been talking to mayors, and you alluded to it, I'd like to go into it a little further. I mean, you have to anticipate that there's going to be some level of change. New administration coming in. We've seen, part one of that movie, and I think it's President Obama said, sometimes the sequel is worse. How are cities going to fare in this environment? They may be seeking funds and relationships on one hand, and they may be in fights. You touched on, immigration and some of the other, at least for now, the rhetoric that we're hearing. How are cities going to make that balance and straddle that challenge?
Well, I'm chatting with you today, having just wrapped up last week our biannual advisory council meeting. We were in San Antonio, and Mayor Nirenberg was a wonderful and thoughtful host. This question you asked, Mayor Nutter, was the top topic of our conversation, both on the stage and after hours. We kicked off our meeting and closed our meeting with how do mayors navigate this time. No surprise that the very thoughtful leaders who we work with are approaching this with earnest pragmatism. They know that it's going to be a time of change. They know what the worst could be. They know what the best could be. And we know as local leaders that the national government often abdicates its role. We've seen a lot of federal government retraction over the last 20, 30 years. Then state governments, depending on what kind of state that you're in, might also stall out. And so where do all these problems land? They land at the front steps of City Hall. And so our mayors are ready for that. But they are going to, I think, really thoughtfully choose where and how they engage. And there are also some bright spots for bipartisanship. Infrastructure continues to be one of those spaces. It's one of the hallmarks of Accelerator's work over the last 7 years, is helping cities get more money for local ballot measures. Again, drawing upon Mayor Garcetti's experience in LA, the passage of Measure M in 2016, local ballot measure for transit transportation, is another replicable initiative that we've taken across the country. Helped Mayor Gallego in Phoenix a couple times pass some big ballot measures and defend one as well. So there's infrastructure as a bipartisan space. And then we think housing can be and should be another bipartisan space for action. And we are hearing that more and more. The housing issues in rural America are very similar to the housing issues in urban America. So I feel hopeful that there will be a chance to work on those things together, and that we can, as city leaders, and as we have to, largely avoid some of the boiling hot rhetoric and just stay cool.
Mary Ellen, has the Accelerator given thought or taken a position as it relates to funding that is meant for cities, but is frequently interrupted by states?
So we battle this issue in infrastructure a lot.
You can have a federal policy that's meant to improve traffic flow and a variety of infrastructure items, but it has to go through a state conduit. And frequently the state has a different position on those kind of investments and will simply hold it up. So I wanted to know where Accelerator is on this topic. And can you give me some insight?
Absolutely. And the challenge of local leaders in working with their states is something that is an omnipresent thread. I heard somebody who was talking about blue cities and red states refer to them as the blueberry in the tomato soup.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Thanks. No. That's why I think it's such an apt metaphor. So we come across it in a couple of ways, Mayor. One of them is on the daily basis, and how states are oftentimes getting in the way of the progress of our mayors. I think one of the most common areas we see it is in state preemption laws. And there's certainly been an increase in that, where state legislatures particularly are saying, no, cities, we give you your grant of authority and we don't think you should do that anymore. We're going to tell you how to do that. That's a big problem for our cities. Our mayors work very hard to have working relationships with their governors, with their state legislatures. Mayor Q, who's about to join us here, has got some good stories, some successful and perhaps some not, on how he's worked with Jeff City and trying to get some things done in his state. It's a big challenge. And I'd say, Mayor, it's also an issue for us on the advocacy front as we think about how we want there to be more infrastructure spending. In this particular law that we're implementing now, there's a lot of money that cities can apply for, all those great discretionary grants that skip the state level and just come straight to the city. And then it's just all, the paperwork with the feds. When we look towards reauthorization in 2026, 27, you're already seeing state highway officials saying, no, we really think those ought to come to us. We think those ought to block grant to the state, and then we'll figure it out. So there's going to be a lot of advocacy for mayors to do on that front.
Mary Ellen, if funds from the federal government to cities are being diverted or held up for political purposes, is there a possibility? I remember Bruce Katz telling me years ago that, and I suspect this is still the same, that that there's no website to go to find, in most cities, certainly in Philadelphia, to find what the city actually owns and what it can leverage. And I wonder if there's talk about, I mean, here, Mayor Nutter, in Philadelphia, we own the airport. That could be, if needed, is that a $4 billion deal that could buttress the budget if there are problems there from the federal side? Is there talk about that, of what can cities do to help themselves if there's a crisis?
So I love that you brought up the issue of property ownership and what do cities really own. Yeah, it's actually been stunning to me how little cities have known until recently about what they have. And we found they're in lots of different databases, or they're in an obscure deed room at the back of some government building. One of the things we've had the joy of doing at Accelerator is pairing up with a gov tech partner called Ptolemy that works in exactly this space. We are working with 17 cities across the country in a cohort, and they use the Ptolemy GovTech platform to be able to understand what they own and what the status of those things are, and then to overlay that with zoning information, lien information, other information at the local level that might impact the status or future of that property. And then for our purposes, we've got them into that so they can look and see what they can do with more affordable housing. What of those properties that they own could be multifamily or single family new housing? So using data and again, peer learning, where folks are saying, here's how I'm using it, here's what you need to do, has really helped advance that cause. But it all does go to, how do we resource our local officials so that they can take care of their own destiny, which, with this, depending on what state you're in, and obviously this new federal era that we're entering, local leaders are going to need those resources so they can steer their own ship to the extent possible.
Mayors, in keeping with our longtime joke, inside joke, Mayor Lucas is with us. He was 5 minutes out, but he is with us. For our listeners, we also welcome today Kansas City, Missouri Mayor Quinton Lucas, otherwise known as Mayor Q. A little aside, the mayor and his wife just had a baby known in KC as Baby Q. So congratulations. So congratulations to them. Mayor Lucas, 40 years old, was reelected in a landslide last year, and we'll get to some of his impressive agenda. And of course, maybe we'll talk. He's become a huge Taylor Swift fan, a Swiftie, if you will, as she has sort of taken over his city. So welcome, Mayor Lucas. We're excited to have you here.
It is great to be with you. I'm always excited to show up on mayor time. And so a thrill. Always good to see Mary Ellen, who has had to fill for mayors like 1,000 times in life. And then, of course, Mayor Nutter, the OG of mayoring. So hopefully I'm just learning some of what he was able to do in Philadelphia.
Oh my goodness.
The OG. I love that. I usually call you elder statesman, but I'm going with OG now.
Yeah, this is gonna stick. This is not good.
Hey,
Mayor, how you doing? Good seeing you.
Let's see.
Mayor Q, let's begin with your commitment to Accelerator for America. Talk about how you got involved and why it's so important.
You know, Accelerator was something that I found early in my mayoral tenure, and I don't think I'm particularly smart, but I saw a challenge, which is how do you implement? So, you know, you run for mayor, maybe you're lucky enough to get elected, you have all these policy ideas, and sometimes, heck, you could even find grants and others. And then it's just kind of this question of, well, how do I build thousands of housing units? How do I make sure that we're actually correctly deploying infrastructure dollars? And frankly, how do I do it when there are people all around the country who have already figured out different models and ways to do it most effectively? So I was able to find this incredible group of mayors who were doing that key implementation work. You know, I was impressed by the work that Accelerator had done with Mayor Garcetti and others in Southern California to really change car dependency fundamentally in Southern California. I saw projects all around the country. I saw incubators in places like St. Louis that I know well, and thought, you know what? This is something that could be key for my city. And I will say this, there are many fraternal organizations that mayors and public servants can be a part of, and they absolutely have a wonderful role. I enjoyed having an opportunity to almost say, we're a group that gets together, that does the work, that figures out how to navigate things at different times. And as luck would have it, I became a mayor during the Trump administration, and it's deja vu for us all. So it's still figuring out how we can make sure Infrastructure Week comes back.
Hey, Mayor Reed, you were exempted from the OG label. You must be part of the newer generation.
Hey, man, I'm just glad to be here, baby. You know, I've been impressed with Mayor Q's work for some time. As Mayor Nutter knows, we had a close friendship with Sly James, who was also a very capable mayor. So I think Mayor Q comes from a strong tradition of leadership in Kansas City.
No question, no question. And just hosted the U.S. conference earlier this year. Is that this? No.
Yeah. Yep. This year.
This year. Time is flying. Time is flying. And you did a fantastic job. And as I mentioned, Mayor Reed and Mary Ellen, many of us saw the mayor as when we were leaving. And then, of course, he comes to the airport just to make sure that many of us got to where we needed to get to. They had a little reception area set aside for us at the airport while many of us were waiting and leaving the conference. And great hosting. We had a ball, Mayor. Thank you.
It was a wonderful time. My favorite part, and I think Mary Ellen was in town for this part too. We had a big barbecue competition. And I took great pride because in Kansas City, saying your favorite barbecue is kind of like, you know, your favorite sports team nationally or something like that. A whole lot of rivalries built from it. And I still love seeing Mayor Parker of Philadelphia, I think Mayor Suarez of Miami, all these folks from these cities with great food culture, trying to get down on some burnt ends, the right types of ribs, all that sort of stuff. So I enjoyed getting a little Kansas City flavor to everybody around the country.
You're gonna make me take a flight out there for that,
man. It was a good time. It was a good time.
We may have to do a remote podcast just for the barbecue. Hey, Mayor, tell us about your zero fare transit initiative, because this I think is really cool, and I'd love to see this in a lot of other cities.
You know, something that we have thought about, and, you know, I've been working with Mary Ellen for years and others. We spend a lot of money on infrastructure improvement and enhancement for our zero fare roads, which almost all of our cities have. What we don't think about is, all right, how can we remove barriers to people using public transit? And barriers coming in two directions. Certainly, we understand those who, for economic reasons, getting a few $1,000s back a year can make a difference for them and their families. That's a huge part of the zero fare mission. But in a place like a Kansas City, just like a Louisville or an Atlanta, where we're trying to sometimes convince people that public transportation is worthwhile, it's efficient, it's effective. One thing that we saw we had to do was remove the confusion of it. And if there are lots of people who have not gotten a bus pass in 25 years, if ever, or if there are a lot of people who haven't really navigated how to hop on the train, how does it work, anything like that, removing that barrier to it, I think makes it a good deal more accessible. So that's kind of how we came to it. I'll give you, though, it's going to make me sound bougie for a minute, but one way I stumbled upon it. So I have a friend, a brother from Kansas City who ended up, he's a great chef. He moved to Copenhagen, Denmark. One time I went out to visit him. So I'm in Copenhagen. I was young, so I didn't know what I was doing. And I was getting on and off the public transit. And about 5 days into being there, I was like, man, I love that your trains and buses are free here in Denmark. And he was like, no, man, everybody here is just honest. You're supposed to pay and have this thing or that thing. And I was like, oh, my bad. But I guess it all worked out. But, what I saw from that, though, was me, right? Somebody who didn't have language capability, somebody who was trying to get around, could figure it out. And taking it from that story, and it's not all about tourists, but that tells me my new arriving immigrant, my person who's just new to town, somebody else who's just trying to get to a job. I bumped into somebody who was a returning citizen from prison who told me, Mayor Q, I love this system because I can get to my doctor, my probation officer, my job, and I don't have to worry about how to navigate it. I mean, that's the sort of kind of life building, changing work that you can do. And I think good mayors find a way to remove barriers. A lot of people talk about the new programs we create. A big part of it is how do you make it easier for people in your community to succeed? And I think zero fare transit is just one of those ways.
How do you pay for it?
Yeah.
So, what we saw was that we were receiving in our city only about $9 million a year in actual fares. And so, the way we initially funded it was finding budget savings in our roughly $170 million public transportation investment. So, first we did it through that. We did use a bit of ARPA. Of course, that doesn't last forever. We had businesses that have helped us with private grants, actually. Before, we were giving incentives to get people to run a bus line to their new factory. We have instead said, how about you contribute to our zero fare program? That has been a very productive way to make sure that we're funding it. But long term, I think that's a lot of our goal on funding and support.
Fascinating.
So tell me about implementation in your idea and passing it. I mean, give me insight. Was there opposition?
Yeah.
Did you galvanize community support before you moved this initiative? Give me insight into that process, please.
The amazing thing, and I'm not telling y'all anything you don't know because you both have had great life stories and run great cities. It's amazing how much, not just the people fight change, but how much people kind of don't question the fact that our poorest people just have to pay for the bus. It's odd that we will spend $300 million for an extra lane of highway through our city that we all know doesn't make that much of a difference, but spending, $9 million on making sure everybody, no matter the income, can catch the bus, was a lot more controversial. So I think step one, we had a very strong kind of, this is a taxpayer giveaway to the poor, kind of that socialism is taking over concern. And in fact, that's why it's zero fare and not fare free. Because I guess my political people told me people hate the word free, which I'm like, all right, well, so we'll do zero. So we had to navigate that. We also had to navigate the story of why people getting more places was good. And this will all be 100% with y'all. There are some parts of my city and perhaps yours where people say, we don't want people catching the bus to our nice development, our nice area. You're making it more accessible for them to do that. So I think we had some bigotry to work through. We had some kind of just easy and simple political attack to work through. And, and of course, we had a bus union, drivers union, that was also saying, what is this going to mean to public safety? So, in this program, we continue to do the work to say, how do we measure incidents on our buses? How are we measuring rider satisfaction? And frankly, how do we just make sure that we keep telling the story of the strength of it? It's an ongoing discussion, but I think it could be transformative for our entire country if we think about making public transit not just more available and accessible, something that we're doing with Accelerator for America all around the country, but also if we make it a little bit easier.
So was the Seed Copenhagen? Was it your visit in Copenhagen? Was that the Seed?
I'd like to say I was a big part of it. Of course, I always have, and y'all all know, you got the transit advocates who, if they could take over tomorrow, we'd be rolling around like the Jetsons. We'd all be on our bicycles and all that stuff. So and I mean that with love to y'all, they go find this interview and be like, Q, you always talking about us. But, I think I was able to, this is where I'll be real, match it with a more moderate Black viewpoint. So, I think our transit advocates have always been those who said, yeah, we need to be on this ride. I think what I was able to do when I came in as mayor was to say, you know what, there is a way that this is something that speaks to what's happening in our inner city too. And I think something that actually I've liked about zero fare transit and what we fundamentally need to do in the transportation conversation is it does need to be something that bridges race. It does need to be something that bridges our different neighborhoods. Public transportation is not just a progressive white issue in our cities, and it cannot be. It needs to be something that expands. And I think in Kansas City, we have so far found a way to do it. And, I think my next great step, I haven't figured this out yet, is the suburban and metro area discussion. They'll talk to me about it and say, we want it. And I say, well, you gotta fund a little bit. And we are still, as y'all know, working that bridge with our suburban friends on how we expand that too.
The point I was getting at, talking about your experience during your visit to Copenhagen, really is how impactful it is to get out of your city and go to other places that work well, and how you find that it informs you. And even though visiting other places can cause local controversy when you're away, I think that, the fact that you had experienced that does inform your mayoralty in a variety of ways, is what I was getting at.
Yeah, well, let me say that I 100% agree. Nobody really understands, but we keep trying to share it. When you become a mayor, you never travel to another city in the same way.
Right.
You are picking up on things from the moment you get there. You are looking at what works, what may not, how you can do this or that, what the police are wearing. Just everything.
It took
Domestically and right.
This
international.
This is the Willie Brown story.
Yeah, it
yeah.
took 2 years to stop. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wish, honestly, and that's why an organization like Accelerator is good, because you actually get a chance twice a year to really dive into another city, learning more about any number of things around you. And so you're right, that Copenhagen experience was exceptional. Something else I've done as a mayor, I do some public safety work at the Conference of Mayors. And so I do police ride-alongs in other cities. And the darndest thing, kind of to your point, is that isn't just a ride along, see what the police are up to. I'm looking at infrastructure. I'm looking at housing. I'm seeing where housing complexes are. I'm seeing everything else with it. So, I do think, I'll just be honest, and I know different mayors do things differently. If you are not a mayor who gets out of town sometimes, particularly a mayor of a city of some size, I don't think you're doing everything you need to. You cannot just sit at your perch at City Hall and kind of think that you're solving everything your community may need. I think it's important to get out.
Yeah. It's always a challenge for mayors. You've got maybe a couple of legislators who think that they might want to test drive the gig. You've got the press. You've got and on a couple of occasions.
When I would leave the country, my city council president would try to pass it. It was crazy.
I didn't want to go there. But
I went there.
I know you did. So one time somebody was complaining about, I was maybe at one of the conferences or something. I said, let me understand something. Did we pick up your trash? Did the streetlights work in your neighborhood? Was there something that you didn't get? Do you think I drive that truck that's coming to you, that's coming to your house? Right. And then I said, and then they invented these new things. Do you have one? It's called a phone. I stay in touch with the office 6 times a day. What is the issue? What is your problem? Now, I'm out of office now, so I can say a lot of things to people. So I don't recommend that to you, Mayor Q. But you just get to a point where you like, do you hear yourself?
Right.
Hey guys, we got to let Mayor Q get going, so he's 5 minutes out to his 5 minutes out to his next appointment.
Next thing.
But I had one last question, Mayor Q, which you stood up your city's first housing trust fund with an incredible number of affordable units for low income Kansas Citians, and I read that that's deeply connected to your lived experience. Can you just share with us, because we talk here all the time about the impetus and the motivation for policy, and it often comes from a very personal place. Can you just share your story with us on that front?
If there is a consistent narrative that I can weave, whether it's from Copenhagen or knowing homelessness in youth, it is that lived experience does provide such interesting models for how we solve our problems. And in an era where our country is having a fascinating discussion with diversity and inclusion, I think it is worthwhile that we continue to evaluate what experiences can mean. My life story, isn't that different than a number of folks in Kansas City or Atlanta, Philadelphia, Louisville, or where have you. Raised just by my mother. She did a wonderful job. I loved it, but we knew homelessness. We knew moving around. We knew catching the bus. And, I think the thing that has always touched me with housing and knowing homelessness and knowing the need for more quality housing is that we need to move faster in our country in housing production. We can't just try to live on the increasingly smaller and smaller amounts in our cities that we get from the Community Development Block Grant and celebrate maybe 1, 2, 3 projects, depending on the city you're in, a year. We needed to amplify that. So in Kansas City, our goal was how can we be aggressive gap fillers in terms of getting housing done? I think the hardest thing for cities that have stood up housing trust funds is to avoid the inclination to just build your own giant housing project, right? But to instead say, this has to be, in some ways, almost a privately led discussion where our incentive tools are pushing folks in places, in areas. Mixed income housing is very important too, because you don't want that centralization of poverty just in an area. And the work for mayors is actually how do you sell that? Because there are a few things anytime you touch housing policy that's really interesting. If you're setting incentive levels and all of that, it's always going to be seemingly too expensive for your community. Because a lot of your people will say, last time I rented a house or an apartment, it was $300 a month. And I'm like, well, that was also 1975. So, things changed a little bit. We have to live a little differently. And we want to make sure that our teacher, police officer, firefighter can live in these areas, which sometimes they may make just enough to be above whatever our cutoff is. I think the other thing that is big for me, and I've shared this a lot in my political career, when, we were experiencing homelessness, as any of y'all would know, waiting 3 months matters, right? Waiting 4 months matters to a kid and their family and all of that. So my goal is how do we get people off the streets as quickly as possible? And importantly, our Housing Trust Fund helps support this. How do we make sure that if somebody's on the edge, if they're about to lose their home or anything of that sort, that we can make it so they can stay, that we find some way to help them bridge through the challenging moment and stay for years later. So that has been something that's personal to me. And it's interesting because in mayor world, they ask, they even from the beginning of the time you're in office, they're like, what's your legacy going to be? And I know sometimes they're asking, what giant tower or testament to yourself are you going to build, like a 80-story Q tower or stuff? To me, the real difference is when you talk about building thousands of units of housing, usually more than one person lives in that housing. If you're with families, then we're averaging on 4. that means that, in cities like mine, you are touching 10, 20, 30,000 people who have that stability. I mean, that to me is life changing. And, most human beings remember the places they lived. And so I just think, man, we are able to get somebody that spot and maybe that stability in their public school so they're not moving 3 times a year when they're moving, 3 different places in their educational environment. And so that matters a lot. I think it will be a difference maker. And frankly, American cities that figure it out are going to be in a good spot over the years ahead.
This has been terrific. Can't thank you enough, Mayor Q, and hopefully you'll come back to talk to us when Mayor Nutter's Eagles kick the ass of your Chiefs.
Wow.
I wasn't. I'm gonna just say
trying to go
scoreboard.
there.
Head to head. I got a Super Bowl ring somewhere, but
oh, that's right. You guys get.
love it.
You guys do get super. Didn't you get a World Series ring, Mayor Nutter?
I got a World Series ring. I was able to hold on to it for a week. And then my chief integrity officer came into my office and said, can I see the ring? And I showed it to her and she said, that's great. So you need to hand that over to me now. It violates our rules. And I had to donate it to the Atwater Kent Museum. I haven't seen it since.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
103 diamonds in that joint, man. It's a beautiful ring. I had it for a week. It's gone. But Mayor Q, I tell you,
how I have to sit silent in the midst of this. I have nothing to add.
At the conference, I did go and see the Super Bowl trophy.
About Tom Brady.
I did go see the Super Bowl trophy that you all had out at the conference.
Oh yeah,
I took a photo.
Y'all just gonna keep going. Y'all just this is diabolical.
But I always want to remind them that we did send you Andy Reid.
Andy Reid.
So just be thankful and be grateful and take it from there.
A difference maker for sure. So I'm looking forward to the next time we get to have some good competition, maybe even this February if we are also lucky. So
absolutely.
Fair enough. I can't thank you enough, and I'm really thankful for Accelerator for America. I think the work you guys are doing is incredible and more important than ever now because of the federal circus. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to enlighten people about these innovations at the local level. So thank you both so much.
Thank you all so much. Good
Great
to talk to everybody. Happy holidays, family.
Happy holidays. Congratulations
on the baby. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right, get some sleep.
Mary Ellen, thank you.
Thanks.
See you. Take care, Mary Ellen.
Hey guys, that was fun. He's great, and I think Accelerator does some great work. So
yeah,
we're looking
that's
forward
gonna be a good partnership.
Yeah,
That was great work, Larry. I'm sorry, Lawrence.
I gotta reach out to Zoom and say, what the fuck you do with my name?
Damn. That's the most Philadelphia he's ever sounded.
Absolutely. I'm gonna start calling that in public. Wait to see what happens.
We had it inside him.
So check out the back. I really zeroed in on it as we were talking. So I'm seeing that he's got the Dr. J mural in the background. He's got Black Moses up on the thing. He's got Marvin Gaye. I mean, what's going on over here?
Hey, I was raised by a Black woman. My she, I don't talk about this a lot. She was when I was a little kid, my family's housekeeper, but then she basically became my mom, and she died about 8 or 9 years ago. And so you know, I still have Thanksgiving with my sister from another mother, her daughter Lynette, every year. So I think that's part of it. But also, let's be real. Black culture is pop culture, right? It's just disproportionate, the dominance and the brilliance of it all. It's a fascinating, we had Dyson on talking about that at one point. So that's part of it. I don't have any.
You put that Bobby Womack on us that day.
That's right.
That was too much. It's too much.
I'm in my Al Green phase right now.
Oh,
I've been listening to Al Green for the last and a half, like pretty much all the time. I got a record.
Really?
Yeah, I got a record player, so I've been playing Al Green's greatest hits.
You've been playing the vinyl?
I've been playing vinyl, baby.
Hey, I went to Al Green's church in Memphis where he sings his sermon.
Yeah.
And
wow.
it is the most moving experience I've ever had. And there are women fainting and catching the feeling and fainting in the aisles. I went to help someone and was told, no, stay away.
See, now, Kasim, you didn't put this. See, I've been listening to my, Spotify sends you your yearly songs. So I've been on that. But now you start talking about Al Green. So now I'm going to have to get into an Al Green rotation.
Man, you got to listen to Al Green. Call Me Today, man.
Call me.
Call me.
Yeah.
When you think about some of the backstory, you think about Al Green, and then some of the backstory with Al Green, you're like, oh, okay. This is what we're talking about.
I wasn't talking about the Al Green documentary. I was just saying that Al Green was in a lane for about 4 years. That was just an amazing lane of music that he produced.
And he still can hit those high notes.
Yeah, and Marvin Gaye made me think about, because I was having a conversation about with a friend of mine about who they thought were the 10 best R&B vocalists, most impactful.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still the case. Maybe they don't do it anymore. But the was Rolling Stone top 500 albums, and What's Going On has been at number one for a long period of time. I mean, you just put that on. The brilliance of that album. I mean, first it was the whole Message album, one of the first of its kind, and the songs all blend in to each other. I mean, there really is no gap. But every one of those songs on that first side, folks listening, for the young people listening, there were sides of the record. There's the A side and the B side. Y'all can Google that. All of those themes are still relevant today. Marvin Gaye was talking about the ecology,
right?
Sustainability, war, violence. I mean, you just sit and listen to it. No one can make an album like that today.
That's a great point. So, do either one of you want to take us out with a few, with some of your vocal stylings?
Well, he's been listening to Al Green for a month. I mean,
let's hear a little "Call Me."
Give me a couple bars of call.
Hey man, I have nothing to say because my mayoral colleagues sat up there and discussed Super Bowls for the end of our program. And then I'm sitting across from Ann Torres, and I was talking about the awful day when we dominated the Patriots all game except for the last 3 minutes. And then she didn't help. I thought some sympathy was going to come my way so I could finish.
Right.
Mayor Nutter and Mayor Q are having this just joyful banter. Oh, I'm in too much pain, but I recommend Al Green's greatest hits. Go get it.
Yeah.
Get it in vinyl, but definitely get it. And the song I listened to today was "Call Me," which does not have an inspirational message other than loving a woman.
I love it. Love is a great way to go out on in 2024.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I love you guys. I love hanging out with you.
No
last month in Philly was By the way, speak about football. We took Mayor Reed to a sports bar where the Eagles were playing, so he got a taste of like what a real football town is like.
I did.
It was wild. It was wild.
I guarantee you a fine time was had, gentlemen. By me.
By me. Well, on that note.
On that note, Happy
We're
New
gonna
Year.
We're gonna save him from himself. You guys, I love you guys too.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun, man. Thank
Let's
you.
make it happen.
Happy New Year to you guys, and
Absolutely.
We'll talk next year. Well, that's it for this episode of How to Really Run a City. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and tell your friends about us. We really want to widen the conversation because by 2050, something like 2/3 of the world will live in cities. As cities go, so goes the nation, and so goes the world.